You know, being a Lego guy isn't all that bad. My butt perfectly interlocks with everything, so I'll always have a place to sit. And since I'm only an inch tall, I can use my cell phone as a big screen TV. Oh look, RoboCop is on. And the best part? This is movie night. Hello and welcome to Movie Night, celebrating its spiritual 10-year anniversary this week. I'm your host, Jonathan Paula. Tonight we'll be reviewing 3 brand new February releases, as well as an 80s sci-fi classic. We'll begin with The Lego Movie. This computer animated comedy film was well on its way to doubling its $60 million budget only a week after its February 7, 2014 release. Co-directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller expertly incorporate conventional stop-motion techniques into the magnificent CGI work from Animal Logic, bringing their marvelously inventive and colorful Legoland to life. The visual effects are impeccably realistic looking, which sees literally everything, including ocean waves and fireball explosions, rendered to look like those tiny interlocking bricks. Rather ostentatiously based on the famous line of construction toys from the 65-year-old Danish company, this 100-minute adventure remains remarkably faithful to its source material. I absolutely love building unique Lego sets as a child, so this film not only made me feel like a kid again, it also transports its audience into a child's imagination. Chris Pratt lends his voice to the lead character, an ordinary and average Lego guy who gets swept up in an improbable quest to save the world from the dastardly plans of Lord Business, an evil character brilliantly voiced by Will Ferrell, who frequently reminds his subjects to follow the instructions. Pratt's wide-eyed portrayal of a regular guy discovering his potential for greatness is a delicate and endearing one. Elizabeth Banks, Will Arnett, Liam Neeson, Morgan Freeman, and plenty of inspired guest appearances make up the all-star cast of talented voice players. I especially love Charlie Day as the overeager 1980-something space guy, who gets more than a little excited when he's finally permitted to build his spaceship. The amusing plot remains uncomplicated enough for kids to follow along and understand, but includes enough subtle jokes, cameos, and sight gags to entertain older viewers as well. Flying by with a mile-a-minute pace, this is a rapturously fun and exciting motion picture that commendably takes some chances with a wonderful third-act twist.
Rest in pieces.
Oh no.
Wait, no!
What the? Relax, everybody. I'm here.
Batman!
What's up, babe?
Babe!
What?
Oh, sorry, Batman. This is Emmett. Emmett, this is my boyfriend, Batman.
I'm Batman.
That's your boyfriend?
The whimsical score by composer Mark Mothersbaugh perfectly sets the mood, while an oft-repeated in-world sing-along song reminds the characters and audiences alike that everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Oh my gosh, I love this song!
Cool when we're part of the team.
Although unashamedly functioning as one big advertisement, it does have heart, encouraging the importance of individuality, the dangers of abusing power, and reminding kids and adults alike why it's important to keep dreaming. It may just be a predictable kids film, but it's easily the best animated feature since Toy Story 3. An endlessly rewatchable PG spectacle, the Lego Movie is beautiful childhood wonder, hilariously realized. Now let's hear some of your thoughts about this picture in the YouTube comments. The Lego Movie scores a 9 and a 9. You love the animation, humor, and huge array of characters, rating this an awesome. I completely agree, there's plenty to love here, and while I'll be holding off on the top score for now, I felt this movie said it best. Everything is awesome. For tonight's poll question, what's your favorite collection of Lego toys? I've always been partial to the old-fashioned city sets myself, but leave your response as a comment below. Now let's review The Monuments Men. Written, directed, produced, and starring the handsome and charismatic George Clooney, this dramatic war film has already earned back half of its $70 million budget, following its February 7, 2014 release. Based on a true story book by Robert M. Edsel, this 118-minute picture showcases a fascinating and intriguing period in history. Clooney leads a group of Allied soldiers into war-torn Europe during the waning months of the Second Great War to track down and hopefully recover important pieces of art before Hitler's armies destroy them. The high stakes are established early when Clooney reminds his men of the Führer's intentions. If you destroy their achievements, their history, it's like they never existed. The group of mostly middle-aged men who have little business venturing into a war zone includes Matt Damon, Bill Murray, John Goodman, Jean Dujardin, Bob Balaban, and Hugh Bonneville. With the exception of Cate Blanchett and the PG-13 rated picture's lone female part, all of the talented award-winning cast is largely wasted in bland, underutilized, one-note roles.
And to put a team together and try to protect what's left, and find what's missing.
Aren't you a little old for that?
Yes.
You want to go into a war zone and tell our boys what they can and cannot blow up.
That's the idea.
Okay, how many men?
For now, 6.
Jesus.
With you, that's 7.
That's much better.
We're gonna go through basic in Shrivenham, England, and then we wait for orders.
Basic. Basic training. Us. Oh boy.
There are quick moments that work wonderfully, however, like when Goodman and Dujardin humorously panic under enemy fire, only to discover their attacker is a small German child. It's tonally inconsistent, though, shifting from lighthearted humor to overly emotional moments that fall flat. While Clooney gets credit for adapting such an interesting story, the paint-by-numbers execution unfortunately does him no favors. While there's some effective use of cascading parallel editing during the picture's climax, the technical aspects of this picture are otherwise less than impressive. In an attempt to stay faithful to history, the story frequently jumps forward in time, resulting in clunky pacing throughout. Excellent costume work, cinematography, art design, and Alexandre Desplat's score all help sell the verisimilitude of the film, but it simply fails to ever elicit a response. Wallowing in mediocrity, this is a noble but ultimately disappointing effort from a group of talented individuals I'm not likely to watch again. The Monuments Men is an underdeveloped drama of missed opportunities. Let's read some of your YouTube comment reviews now. Our scores are a 6 and a 5 for The Monuments Men. While you enjoyed the all-star cast, you complained that they were underused, rating this a good. Clooney attempts to convince us that art is something worth dying for, but he fails to even convince me that this film is worth feeling anything for. I thought it was alright. A reminder now to check out and subscribe to the Movie Night Archive channel for an organized library of all our past reviews and my trailer commentaries. This week I shared my annoyance over the teaser trailer for The Purge Anarchy. Now a bonus review for the original RoboCop. Released in the summer of 1987, this ambitious sci-fi action film from director Paul Verhoeven was immensely successful. Besides earning over 4 times its $13 million budget, the 102-minute picture spawned 2 sequels, a reboot, a television miniseries, comic books, and a really difficult video game that I never could beat as a kid. Peter Weller stars as the title character, one of the few honest police officers left in a futuristic and hellish version of Detroit. After rushing through the first act and being summarily executed by the despicably evil, drug-dealing Kurtwood Smith, Weller is brought back to life as a walking, talking, ass-kicking cyborg. The robot transformation sequence, inventively shot entirely from a first-person perspective, is especially well done. As a human, Weller isn't very interesting, but once he's fighting crime on the impossibly well-lit streets of the Motor City, his persona comes to life, stoically warning a criminal in his gravely robotic voice, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." Smith, alongside Ronnie Cox, do a marvelous job as the 2 conniving bad guys you'll love to hate. Although it handily earns its R rating with plenty of gruesome violence and coarse language, this movie also has a sharp wit and self-awareness to it, thanks to the original script by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner. In-film news reports and commercials are especially amusing, approaching almost Onion levels of political and social satire.
He's gonna kill her! He's gonna kill her!
Your move, creep.
It's okay!
I'm so scared. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam, you have suffered an emotional shock. I will notify a rape crisis center.
As RoboCop struggles with his own cognizance, the parable that plays out is an important one. What constitutes human life, and what would you do to save it? But since we barely learn about the human inside the metal suit, it's difficult to connect or even empathize with Weller's plight. Despite some minor continuity issues, this picture is filled with awesome practical effects, matte paintings, and stop-motion work, most of which hold up pretty well considering. Greek composer Basil Polydorus does a fantastic job exploring the man-machine duality with the score comprised of both synthesized heavy metallic sounds mixed perfectly with traditional orchestration. And when the heroic theme swells to full volume, it's hard not to get excited for what's about to happen next, even if the actual action sequences are more flash than bang. Although some of the pacing is slow and the characters much too underdeveloped, this is a fun piece of 80s cinema. Verhoeven commendably blends jokey satire with black comedy and violent drama, delivering a fascinating and memorable experience worth watching more than once. RoboCop is an intriguing allegory amongst entertaining carnage. My final score is a 7. While it has a certain cheese factor to it and its fair share of missteps, this is a character and a movie that has stood the test of time. I thought RoboCop was cool. Speaking of which, let's review this year's reboot. Released nationwide on February 12, 2014, this futuristic sci-fi reboot of the 1980s classic of the same name is the latest in a long line of unoriginal cash grabs for Hollywood. Surprisingly though, it doesn't suck. It's actually a lot of fun. So if it manages to earn back its $130 million budget, you could probably expect a sequel or two. Immediately opening with a snippet of Basil Poledouris' iconic theme and the big metallic text logo, it's apparent this film isn't necessarily attempting to distance itself from its predecessor, even including some humorous callbacks for good measure. Although it takes many liberties from its source material, the plot is similar. A Detroit police officer is killed in the line of duty, only to be resurrected as a crime-fighting cyborg, also functioning as a marketing puppet for a greedy conglomerate. Relatively unknown outside of Sweden, 34-year-old Joel Kinnaman stars as the title character, and thanks to a smart decision to focus more on RoboCop's psychological struggles, he carries a fair amount of the film on his shoulders. Unfortunately, Kinnaman is rarely charismatic and delivers his lines with all the passion of, pardon the pun, a robot. Thankfully, he's surrounded by a great cast that includes Gary Oldman, Michael Keaton, Jackie Earle Haley, and Samuel L. Jackson, some of whom are able to shine more than others. Plus, nerds in the audience will love seeing Commissioner Gordon and Batman share several scenes together.
You wanted a man inside a machine, and that's what you've got, but the human element will always be present. Fear, instinct, bias, compassion, they will always interfere with the system.
Okay, but Dad, I've got to give the American people something they can root for, something aspirational, right? They have to believe in this thing. Pretty good. That's not, I don't know how to sell okay. So I don't care how you do it. I'm asking you, come on, can you help me? Just get him to do that. Him to do that.
He's a machine.
I know, but it's a man inside a machine.
No, that's a man inside a machine, right there!
And his life depends on it, and the future of Omnicorp depends on it, so get your ass back to China and get it fixed. I don't care how you do it, just go do it.
The film's most unnerving scene, however, has Oldman showing Kinnaman what's really left of his human body after his death. Piece by piece, everything but a handful of organs are removed, leaving literally nothing but a floating head suspended in front of a mirror. So shocked and horrified by what he sees, the newly birthed RoboCop immediately asks to die. It's a quick moment of sheer brilliance for the film that truly elevates its emotional power above and beyond the shallower original. Earlier, Abby Cornish, playing the part of the weeping and angry wife, argues, "You said you could save him, but what kind of life would he have?" Despite going a bit overboard with some shaky cam, one action set piece has RoboCop hunting down bipedal drones in an empty warehouse, set to the unexpectedly effective sounds of Focus's prog rock hit Hocus Pocus. This scene's frequent use of POV shots, complete with an on-screen kill count, makes it play out like an awesome video game. Director Jose Padilla's decision to go for a PG-13 rating means much of the original's trademark violence has been watered down. One disorienting pitch-black shootout, lit only by muzzle flashes, was almost seizure-inducing. A touch longer than it needs to be at 118 minutes, the realistic visuals will still keep you entertained. While fans of the series may enjoy this as much as the original, this is still a well-made reboot worthy of the franchise name, and one I wouldn't mind seeing again. The RoboCop reboot is gripping and absorbing despite clunkiness. Here are some of your thoughts and reviews now from the comments. Our scores for RoboCop, a 6 and an 8. Several criticize this film for even existing, but were at least entertained by the action, rating it a good. Even though I didn't care for the new matte black paint job, I was surprised by this picture, and watching them back to back, I honestly enjoyed it more than the original. I thought it was great. Finally tonight, let's see what you're saying about movies currently playing in theaters with some of your tweet critiques. If you see a new movie in theaters, tweet your review at the JPMN hashtag. Next week in my annual Oscar special, we'll begin reviewing all 9 2013 Best Picture nominees: American Hustle, Captain Phillips, Dallas Buyers Club, Gravity, Her, Nebraska, Philomenia, 12 Years a Slave, and The Wolf of Wall Street. Once you've seen these films, share your opinions by voting in the polls below or by leaving a comment review. I'm going to need reviews for all of them, so don't be afraid to leave a bunch of comments. If you'd like to watch more movie night reviews, check out the related videos on the right, including a special throwback episode of John's Adventure Vlog, where I take a look back at the first movie review I ever did, which premiered 10 years ago this week. Also, please click subscribe to be notified of all new content, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Google Plus for updates between episodes. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time, have a good movie night.